In a bustling restaurant, amid the soft murmur of conversations and the clinking of glasses, John kneeled down and proposed, "Reka, will you marry me?" The moment seemed perfect, a scene straight out of a romantic movie. Reka's eyes widened, and a gasp of excitement escaped her lips. "Oh my, how wonderful," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with surprise and joy. "Best wishes to you both," a nearby patron exclaimed, clapping enthusiastically. The surrounding tables erupted in applause, creating an atmosphere of celebration and happiness. But then, a voice cut through the joyous atmosphere, shattering the idyllic scene. "Wait a minute, weren't you just a customer? What's going on here?" The words hung in the air, turning heads and silencing the clamor. "My name is Kathy, and I'm 50 years old. I live with my husband, John, and our 25-year-old twin sons, Ken and Mike. We had what I believed was a stable, if not exciting, family life in our suburban home. The walls of our house were adorned with family photos, memories of vacations, birthdays, and holidays spent together. Our life, though not perfect, was filled with the ordinary comforts and routines of a long-standing marriage. One evening, as the golden glow of the setting sun filled our living room, John approached me with an unusually serious expression. The house was quiet except for the distant hum of the television. "Mom, I need to talk to you," he said, his voice steady but heavy with unspoken words. "What's this all about?" I asked, feeling a knot forming in my stomach. The familiar comfort of our home suddenly felt oppressive, the walls closing in as John's words loomed over us. "Please, let's get a divorce," John said, his eyes avoiding mine. The words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the breath out of my lungs. "What?" I exclaimed, my heart pounding in my chest. The room seemed to spin as I tried to process what he had just said. "Dad, this is too sudden." Ken chimed in, his face a mix of shock and confusion. His eyes darted between John and me, searching for an explanation. "Yeah, Mom is shocked too. Did you even discuss this with her before?" Mike added, his voice laced with disbelief. The twins, always so protective, were now facing the unimaginable collapse of our family. John and I had lived a relatively peaceful and ordinary life. We had our share of joys and challenges, but I thought we were content. Apparently, John felt differently. The realization was like a dagger to the heart. "Why?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. I needed to understand, needed to make sense of the chaos that had suddenly invaded our lives. "I've fallen in love with someone else," John admitted, his words hanging in the air like a dark cloud. The betrayal was palpable, an icy chill spreading through me. "At your age?" Mike scoffed, unable to hide his contempt. His disbelief mirrored my own, but his words stung. "Mike, don't mock your father." "So, who is she?" I pressed, needing to understand the depth of this betrayal. My voice wavered, but I forced myself to stay composed. "I met her through work. She's 30 years old," John confessed, his voice trembling slightly. The age difference was staggering, the reality of it all sinking in. 30? That's only 5 years older than us. Ken exclaimed, his face reddening with anger. The absurdity of the situation was almost too much to bear. "Realistically, don't you think it's difficult to pursue a 30-year-old woman?" Mike questioned, his tone icy. His eyes bore into John, demanding answers. "You're 52, Dad, and she's 30. That's a 22-year age gap. I mean, I'm 25, and I can't imagine dating a 47-year-old woman," Ken added, shaking his head in disbelief. The logic was irrefutable, but John seemed oblivious. "Despite the age gap, I thought you were still devoted to Mom," I said, feeling a pang of betrayal deep in my chest. The life we had built together seemed to crumble around me. "Isn't this essentially an affair?" Ken asked, his eyes narrowing. The room was thick with tension, the air almost suffocating. "No, it's not an affair. There's potential between us," John replied defensively, his words a flimsy shield against the truth. "What do you mean by potential?" I asked, trying to make sense of his twisted logic. My heart was breaking, but I needed to understand. John is the type who doesn't take risks without thinking them through. If he sees potential, it means there's some foundation to this relationship, even if he hasn't crossed any lines yet, I explained, though my heart felt like it was shattering into pieces. "Potential or not, it's still infidelity," Mike stated firmly, his voice echoing my thoughts. "I agree," Ken nodded, his jaw set with determination. The twins stood by my side, their support unwavering. "Mom, please, let's get a divorce. I've even prepared these documents," John said, handing me the papers. The weight of the betrayal felt heavier as I stared at the cold, legal documents. The finality of it all was overwhelming. "Is there no room for discussion?" I asked, hoping for a glimmer of the man I once loved. The man who had promised to stand by me through thick and thin. "No matter what we discuss, my feelings won't change," John responded, his eyes unyielding. The man I had known for so long was now a stranger. "Fine," I sighed, taking the papers. The room felt colder, the warmth of our family slipping away. The sense of loss was profound. "Mom, are you sure about this?" Ken asked, worry etched on his face. His concern was touching, but I had made my decision. John is stubborn, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life with someone who's unhappy with me. "I deserve to be loved too," I said firmly, though my voice trembled slightly. The words were true, but they didn't lessen the pain. "Mom, at least have one last conversation. There are many things to decide, and after 27 years together, we owe each other that much," Mike urged, his eyes pleading. His hope for resolution was heartbreaking. "You're right," I agreed, though my heart felt heavy with the impending loss. The years we had spent together deserved at least this much. The twins left to give us privacy. John and I sat down with a bottle of wine, the silence between us deafening. The living room, once filled with laughter and warmth, now felt like a battlefield. When did you start disliking me? I asked, taking a sip, the wine burning my throat. The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken emotions. I don't dislike you, Kathy. I just don't see you as a woman anymore, John replied, his words cutting deep. The bluntness of his admission was like a slap in the face. That's harsh. I may have aged, but so have you. You've lost hair and gained weight. We're both getting older, I retorted, my voice tinged with bitterness. The years had taken their toll on both of us. I have stress from work, John said defensively, as if it justified everything. The excuse felt hollow, a poor defense for his actions. And I have my own stresses, working part-time and managing the household. There's no point in arguing, I said, pouring more wine, trying to numb the pain. The alcohol was a temporary escape from the harsh reality. Let's just enjoy the evening and talk things through, I suggested, though it felt more like a plea. The hope for a peaceful resolution was fading. Fine, John agreed, taking a deep drink. The wine seemed to loosen his tongue, the conversation flowing more freely. So, tell me more about her. What's she like? I inquired, my curiosity masking my hurt. The need to know was overwhelming. Her name is Reka. She's very beautiful and smart. We met at a business conference, John began, his eyes lighting up as he spoke of her. The admiration in his voice was painful to hear. I knew John became talkative and loose-lipped when he drank, often forgetting everything the next day. I decided to use this to my advantage. Why would a young, attractive woman be interested in you? I asked, feigning curiosity, though my heart ached. The question was a dagger, aimed at his vanity. Because I'm distinguished and charming, John boasted, oblivious to the hurt he was causing. His self-assurance was infuriating. Distinguished? That's one way to put it, I thought, hiding my smirk behind my wine glass. The irony was almost too much to bear. So, how did you two meet again? I asked, pretending to be fascinated. The details were important, each one a piece of the puzzle. Through a dating app, John admitted, his voice devoid of any guilt. The revelation was shocking, yet it made a twisted kind of sense. A dating app? That's a clear violation of our marriage vows. Weren't you supposed to be at work? I said, feigning shock, though my hands trembled. The betrayal was multifaceted, each layer more painful than the last. I joined the app about a year ago. That's where I met Reka, John explained, walking right into my trap. His naivety was almost pitiable. You've been deceiving me for a year? I said, my voice trembling with faint hurt. The deception was deep, a wound that would take time to heal. Mom, don't worry, you can find love too, Mike said, trying to lighten the mood, though his eyes were filled with concern. His attempt at comfort was touching but ineffective. With my old body, it won't be easy, I replied sarcastically, though the words stung. The self-deprecation was a shield, hiding the raw pain. By the way, are you planning to marry Reka? I asked, changing the subject. The future seemed uncertain, yet the question needed to be asked. Yes, I am, John said confidently, as if his decision was a foregone conclusion. The certainty in his voice was maddening. I see. And how do you plan to propose? I asked, curiosity piqued. The logistics of his plan were fascinating in their absurdity. At a nice restaurant, I suppose, John replied, his eyes glazing over with visions of grandeur. The fantasy was elaborate, yet grounded in reality. Do you have any specific place in mind? I inquired further, wanting to know every detail. The thoroughness of his planning was almost admirable. I was thinking of a restaurant our friend recently opened. It's quite stylish, John said, his excitement barely contained. The venue was crucial, a stage for his grand gesture. Why not make it grand? Diamonds, live music, maybe even a flash mob? I suggested, knowing how over the top it sounded. The extravagance was a deliberate exaggeration. That sounds wonderful. Can you help me plan it? John asked eagerly. His enthusiasm was palpable, almost endearing in its naivety. Of course. Let's make it unforgettable, I said with a smile, hiding my true intentions. The manipulation was subtle, yet effective. A month later, John was at the restaurant, nervously preparing for the proposal. Ken and Mike had helped set everything up, unbeknownst to John. The ambience was perfect, a carefully crafted illusion of romance. This place is amazing, Reka said, looking around in awe, the twinkling lights casting a romantic glow. The setting was idyllic, designed to impress. Yeah, my son and his friend helped arrange this, John said, trying to hide his nerves. The pride in his voice was evident, yet his anxiety was palpable. The evening was filled with exquisite food and sparkling conversation. As the night progressed, John became increasingly anxious about the proposal. The anticipation was almost unbearable, each moment dragging out the tension. Suddenly, the lights dimmed, and the sound of live music filled the room. This was the moment John had been waiting for. The stage was set, the spotlight on him. Reka, will you marry me? John asked, getting down on one knee, his heart pounding. The vulnerability was raw, his emotions laid bare. Absolutely not. Reka replied sharply, her voice cutting through the ambient music. The rejection was immediate, brutal in its clarity. The restaurant fell silent. John's face turned pale as he tried to comprehend what had just happened. The shock was evident, his world collapsing around him. I'm sorry, but after hearing about your past and deceit, I can't marry you, Reka said, standing up, her expression resolute. The decision was final, her resolve unshaken. But, John stammered, his world crumbling. The desperation was evident, yet futile. I'm leaving, Reka said, turning to walk away, her heels clicking on the polished floor. The finality of her departure was undeniable. Wait, what about the ring? John asked, desperation in his voice, as he watched his future slip away. The plea was pathetic, a last-ditch effort. I'll keep it as a reminder of what not to look for in a partner, Reka said, taking the ring and leaving without a backward glance. The rejection was total, her disdain evident. As Reka walked out, John slumped back into his chair, utterly defeated. The reality of his actions and their consequences finally dawned on him. The magnitude of his loss was overwhelming. Mom, Dad, thank you for everything. We'll always be family, even if things change, Ken said, breaking the silence, his voice steady. The declaration was poignant, a reminder of their bond. Take care, Dad, Mike added, guiding their mother out of the restaurant. The support was unwavering, their loyalty clear. John watched them leave, his life unraveling before his eyes. He had lost his family, his love, and now he faced an uncertain future alone. The isolation was profound, the consequences of his actions devastating. Sir, the bill, please, the waiter interrupted his thoughts, bringing him back to the harsh reality. The mundane request was jarring, a stark contrast to the emotional turmoil. How much? John asked, dreading the answer, as his heart sank. The cost was not just monetary but emotional. $100,000, the waiter replied, his voice polite but firm. The number was staggering, the price of his folly. $100,000? For what? John exclaimed, the number staggering. The disbelief was evident, yet the reality undeniable. The private dining, the high-end menu, the live music, it's all included, the waiter explained patiently. The explanation was methodical, almost clinical. John handed over his credit card, barely able to process the events of the night, his hands shaking. The transaction was perfunctory, a final blow. Thank you, the waiter said, handing back the card with a practiced smile. The courtesy was hollow, a formality. John sat there, alone and broken, realizing the full extent of his mistakes. He had gambled everything on a fleeting romance and lost it all. The desolation was complete, the future bleak. Back home, Kathy and the twins settled into their new routine, determined to move forward. They knew it wouldn't be easy, but they were ready to face the challenges ahead together. The resilience was admirable, their unity a beacon of hope. Kathy looked out the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance. She wiped away a tear and smiled, knowing that brighter days were ahead. The optimism was hard-won, yet unwavering.